The March 7th Board of Education meeting is now called to order. Please rise for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is being televised live on AACPS TV and live streamed on the internet. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure you read those if you have not already. Item number 2.03 is approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments or additions to the minutes? Okay. All those in favor? Motion passes 9-0. Item 2.04 is establish agenda order. Where's Bob? We need to, you were supposed to be given that. Just a minute, please. We need to make a motion to remove 6.01.
Madam President, I move that we remove 6.01 from the agenda.
To be rescheduled.
To be rescheduled.
Second. Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Minutes are the agenda is so adjusted. Item 2.05 is board recognitions, and we have no recognitions this morning. Item 2.06 is Educator of the Month, and that is me. The National Education Association's Read Across America Day is a nationwide reading celebration that takes place annually on March 2nd, Dr. Seuss's birthday. Across the country, thousands of schools and libraries participate by bringing together kids, teens, and books. Today, the Board of Education recognizes an educator in our school system who has for years helped her students read across America every day at Jones Elementary School. As the school's reading teacher, Karen Simpson is directly involved in the growth of both staff and students. However, her expertise and love of teaching reach far beyond the duties of her job. Her knowledge from years in the classroom and experiences as a reading expert are well respected at Jones. Ms. Simpson makes time in her day to plan with all grade levels, to model lessons for teachers at all experience levels, and to analyze data with each teacher to help them make timely decisions for their students. She knows what each teacher needs to be successful and provides resources at the drop of a hat. Karen Simpson is the backbone of the staff at Jones Elementary. She provides a listening ear and very often a hug and words of support and encouragement to teachers who need it. Not to mention a wide range of knowledge that she uses to ensure that each teacher has exactly the resources they need to make their lessons successful. Never is there a time when Ms. Simpson doesn't have an answer or idea for a teacher in need. Teaching lessons, covering duties, manning the front office, organizing school-wide read-alouds, planning for Harvest for the Hungry, Karen steps into more roles than just about anyone at Jones, all in the name of making the school a happy place. A funny voice, some music, or a joke in the announcements have earned her a reputation of being someone students can trust. Her infectious smile greets students as they eat lunch, enter assemblies, or come to her room for a lesson. To work with Mrs. Simpson means knowing that there is always someone on my side, said one of her colleagues. She has tons of ideas and resources to help every teacher become a better teacher and every student to reach his or her potential. She constantly goes above and beyond what is expected of her, and always with a smile. Karen Simpson, your passion for your profession and the impact you have on all individuals is obvious. You are trusted at Jones Elementary by students, parents, and staff for being the perfect blend of knowledgeable, professional, lighthearted, and loving. You provide the light and inspiration to all who cross your path. So on behalf of the Board of Education and the Jones Elementary School family, we congratulate you on being selected Educator of the Month for March 2018. Please join me up front. right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How did they get you here?
Apparently, there was a literacy grant, and they needed reading teachers present, and I'm sitting here going, there's no other reading teachers here. I guess I was the only one that showed, but yeah, I'm totally surprised.
Awesome. So who's here?
My husband and my kids, JP and Kendall.
And from your schools? And from your schools?
So I'm sorry. So my principal, Pat Keffer, and Jane Friend, who called me last night and really, lied to me.
Awesome.
But yes.
We love that. Well, we have a nice certificate for you, and you will get a bell with your name on engraved on it, so you can call it. But our bells weren't quite delivered on time this month, but it will be coming. And we ask that you please stay around afterwards, and we'll get pictures with you and your family.
Okay, thank you. I'm honored.
Congratulations. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
All right. Item 2.07 is Employee of the Month, Ms. Sasso.
Today, we honor an employee in our school system whose job is critical to the entire operation of our school system. With over 125 schools, 80,000 students, and 10,000 teachers, the thousands of pieces of mail that move throughout the system each week need to be handled and delivered quickly and efficiently. And that's why the board today would like to recognize Mr. Kevin Parker, mail driver with the Logistic Department, for his dedicated, excellent service of over 20 years to Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Kevin Parker consistently provides outstanding service to the schools and facilitates that he delivers mail to weekly. Not only does Kevin deliver baskets mailed to each location, but also testing material from design and print services and multiple packages from central office departments. Kevin must also pick up mail and packages from each location daily while driving over 100 miles a day round trip. Kevin displays a high degree of willingness to assist other staff members daily, often without being asked. He always exhibits a get-the-job-done attitude, never expecting praise for the hard work he performs daily. He always deals with staff in a professional manner. He treats everyone with a high degree of respect, which does not go unnoticed. School-based staffers always look forward to Kevin's upbeat and positive daily visits and his offers of assistance. His pleasantries and vibrant smile are welcoming and contagious. Kevin Parker, Anne Arundel County Public Schools would not be able to operate each day without your valuable contributions. You perform consistently at a high level, giving assurance to all staff members that their mail will be delivered quickly and efficiently. So on behalf of the Board of Education, the students, staff, and teachers of Anne Arundel County Public Schools, we are pleased to recognize Kevin Parker, Employee of the Month for March 2018. Unfortunately, Kevin Parker was unavailable to be with us this morning to accept this award. Therefore, we are asking Chris Parker, mailroom foreman, to accept this award on his behalf. Mr. Parker, would you please come forward? I know that you were not connived to come here because you were told not to do. Okay, we would like to present Mr. Parker with his certificate. And like our president said, the bells did not arrive on time. Okay. But he will get his bell so that he can ring it. Maybe he can ring it every time he gets to a school. They will know he has arrived.
Exactly.
Okay. And you can give him that.
All right.
Thank you very much. And stay for the picture.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Item 2.08 is Volunteer of the Month, Ms. Cole.
Parent volunteers are a keystone in Anne Arundel County public school community. While our educators and staff members work tirelessly to ensure that all students have academic and experiential opportunities that will help them to excel in the present and future, Our goals cannot be fully realized without the enthusiasm and dedication of our volunteers. Today, we are proud to celebrate a shining example of excellence in volunteerism, Miss Stacy Nutile. Giving generously of her time and talents, Miss Nutile has helped to bring the music into the lives of Southern High School students and staff and community members since 2011. Not only has she served as president of the school's Music Booster Club, but she has become a cherished presence and integral contributor to the school culture and climate. Andra Wayland, assistant principal at Southern High School, shared that Miss Nutile made it her personal goal to raise $10,000 to Southern Music's department before her son graduates in 2018. Not only is Miss Nutile working to raise money for the department, she is also supportive of a variety of school goals. Under her leadership, the Southern High School Music Boosters Club has donated money to support an electronic marquee, a new sound system for the auditorium, new guitars, and new piano. Ms. Nutile has extended her commitment beyond the Music Boosters, working closely with Southern High School Music Alum Society and establishing a music scholarship for recent graduates. Beyond her dedication to the music department, Ms. Nutile serves on the prom breakfast community, maintains active membership in the parent-teacher-student organization, assists with the Student of the Month breakfast, and organizes meeting, funding, and other volunteers in support of student activities and success. Lead teacher Brianna Gresco calls Ms. Nutile an invaluable asset who regularly checks in with teachers to inquire about how she and Booster Club may be of service. Music teacher Brian Forte says she is always the first volunteer, and her experience and presence with the students is comforting to all. Principal Kathy Ferhan echoes the appreciation of her teachers, and she notes that Miss Nutile will be sorely missed when her youngest child graduates in the coming months. Miss Nutile, we thank you, not only for the harmony that you've helped ring through the halls of Southern High School, but for your consistent commitment to learning and growth of all of our students. Would you please come forward, and we are pleased to present you as our Volunteer of the Month, and to accept the certificate and a bell as a token of our appreciation.
It's not what I'm supposed to be here for.
Was the idea.
And how did they trick you to get you here this morning?
Mrs. Fierhart said my son was getting Student of the Month award for the board. I was so excited for him.
And who's come to celebrate with you today?
My husband Tom is here, my son Vincent, and Principal Fierhart from Southern High School.
Oh, well,
I see Mr. Dykstra too. Hi. I've been around a long time. Thank you
And
all.
congratulations, we're here to offer you with your certificate, and luckily your bell did come in on time. So Thank you so
all.
much, and please
Thank
stay
you.
afterwards for pictures.
I will. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Item 2.09 is school and community highlights. Anyone? Ms. Cole.
Well, I was lucky to go to the Crass General Assembly. It was held at Arundel High School. I was glad to see so many different students from all the high school across the county, and hopefully Crass will get a lot of new hopeful members.
We honored one of our reading teachers today for Read Across America Month. I had the pleasure yesterday of going to Chesapeake High School for their Read Across America event. Their media specialist, Jerry Svetic, I think I'm saying that right, puts on an amazing day, and she brings in authors and has an all-day long workshop for different classes to come in and hear from authors and talk about reading and writing, and it was just spectacular. And also I want to give a big shout out to our 36 students who made all-state band, orchestra, and chorus. So as a parent said to me, that's like winning the state championship, and she's right. And we had 36 of them that did that this year. So congratulations to all of them. All right. 2.10 is the CAC report. Do we have a CAC report? Okay, no report today. Item 2.11 is the PTA report. Ms. Holler.
You guys better warn me to bring tissues, because it's getting intense every time I come here. Okay. I love that you guys do what you do and that you recognize the work that all these wonderful parents and employees do every day, so thank you. Of course, the end of the school year is coming up, so that means that we're doing more stuff to kind of wrap up the year. So our board meeting is next week, March 13th at 5:30 here in this building, in this room. We also have a legislative breakfast on March 15th. The event starts at 9, but we have a breakfast at 8 a.m. And we're going to have some speakers. We're going to talk about a lot of issues that are coming up that may hurt the education system or may not. So we want parents and all people to kind of come and educate themselves on what's going on. We also have a wonderful event, our Founders Day. The packets went out on Monday. And Founders Day is a day to celebrate all of our PTA parents, all of our PTA volunteers, and everybody that comes, to have just a day to say, hey, we thank you for everything you do. The event is on April 20th, and we would like the RSVPs to be in by the 2nd, but we'll make exceptions for everybody as the bells didn't even come in, so we know that happens to us too. Another very serious and more important subject that I do want to bring up is the do's and don'ts for elections as a PTA. We are a 501c3, and we are very lucky that this year we have a lot of elections coming up for Board of Education and for other things, but we do ask our PTAs to please be aware of our do's and don'ts, because as a PTA we do have some rules to follow. We do want to support all of our fellow people who are running for office. We want to support them, but we also want to maintain our status as 501c3. So if you have any questions on our do's and don'ts, they're on our website. They're on the link for our Maryland PTA and our national PTA, as well as I have a very fun email I try to send around to remind people of our do's and don'ts. Also, because of the year wrapping up, we have elections coming up for Board of Education position, for AACCPTA positions. So we do have a lot of openings that we need attention to. So if anybody is interested, please email president@aaccpta.org. That's a mouthful. And the subject, board position, if you're interested. And if you have time to come next week, we can talk about the different positions that are open. So that's basically it. So thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you. All right, we will now take a short recess to have pictures taken with our People of the Month. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes, and if our educator and volunteer of the month could come out to the lobby. Okay, we will now have our public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. A tone will sound when time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking, and handouts should be given to the board assistant. Okay. Mike Shea, John Earl, Corporal Andrew Nutile, and Jennifer Cinco.
Would you like me to go first? Okay. Mike Shea. Parents are coming to the county council with compelling testimony that you are not doing your job and meeting your responsibilities. It's taking up their time, and they're very concerned, and I believe they are going to step in on the safety for children. The continued bullying testimony at the school board and repeatedly at the county council is shocking, and it appears rampant. I should note your sponsored Shadyside Elementary School PTO refused to form a health and safety committee that members wished to staff. As much as we've been coming here for your lack of progress and transparency on the targeting of cell tower in our children's playground at Shadyside Elementary School, it seems there are a multitude of problems that need to be addressed. I would suggest that the Milestone Master Agreement and its renewal document be read by the members, and particularly the members that suggest the parents have no standing at the school board for redress or remedy. The process started here, it ends here, and it's here in between. Milestone Tower Company was not good enough with the process or transparency and was removed by Prince George's County, and you have that ability at, in Anne Arundel County. What appears to be not good enough for Prince George's County appears to be good enough for Anne Arundel County. So you can suggest concerned parents go away to another venue, but we're not going away until the tower concept goes away. You are the responsible party for targeting our school without notice, avoiding responsibility, but we know by contract you have the ability to cancel right up until it's time for final approval decision. On ethics and concept, people have a right to be assured that the impartiality of your judgment, the confidence and trust is eroded when the conduct of public business is subject to improper influence and even the appearance of improper influence. That's your ethics and conflict. Terry, you have taken the Milestone money. You should have recused yourself. The policy on telecommunications and transmission facilities. The president and superintendent signed agreement in the middle of December reconfiguring lots on the Shadyside Elementary School. This should have been brought before the board. This is part of the telecommunications policy, and we are losing confidence in our school board in adhering to their policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. Mr. Earl.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? John Earl, Shadyside. So Mr. Grannon asked us why we keep coming back to contest the building of, of a cell tower at Shadyside Elementary School. I appreciate the question, and I'm here to remind you that why I keep coming back is that the master agreement clearly states that there are still several opportunities for the board to stop the project. If the agreement is followed properly, that is. And Superintendent Arlotto, you also have full authority to stop the project at any time. So I'm not going to stop coming to these meetings until the tower is standing there in my backyard. In fact, as I'm looking through the policies of Anne Arundel County Public Schools, there have been lots of violations occurring. Public updates are part of the policy, and the website prior to February 22nd for the project hadn't been updated for 7 months. In the meantime, on November 14th, the Maryland Department of Environment had come out, done a site visit, made a report, yet no community update was provided. On December 20th, as Mike stated, Arlotto and Hummer did reallocate all the lots to make it, in my opinion, it's effectively leasing more grounds to the cell tower company, and therefore you're helping them to try and make it environmentally possible to get permitting. On January 18th, the Army Corps of Engineers visited the location, submitted a report, yet no community update was afforded. And then on February 2nd, grading permits were filed with extensive modifications. They don't want a community meeting again. They don't want to have to submit a site development plan. No community updates, no transparency. Your tenant milestone has violated Anne Arundel County Public School policy. Yes. There's been a complete lack of transparency and much information provided to the community. I would suggest you review your policies and take action against Milestone. And I'd like to also state that Terry Gillian, I think it's outrageous that you're taking money from a company that will profit from decisions you're a part of. And you should have recused yourself in the early days of this whole process.
Thank you, Mr. Earl. Corporal, am I saying it right, Nutile? Is
Yes.
that right? Okay, Corporal Nutile.
Good afternoon, Board. I am Corporal Andrew Nutile with the Maryland State Police. I'm currently assigned to the Glen Burnie Barrack. Along with me is D. Sergeant Eicher, TFC DeMoss, and TFC Null of the Criminal Enforcement Division. We're here to present our idea plan to implement into the Anne Arundel County High Schools a nationally recognized training in civilian response to active shooter event. Due to the increase in school shootings and threats, especially recently in Anne Arundel County, such as threats to Broadneck, Glen Burnie, and Chesapeake, and I do believe also North County. Highlights of this program, the training is no cost to Anne Arundel County schools to train the teachers and staff. The training is approximately 1 hour long. I understand the Maryland governor has announced more money and more resources such as safety school officers, but again, this is one man, one woman who is going to prevent this type of shooting. What we want to be is we want to be proactive. We want the parents to know that we're providing the best up-to-date training to combat a situation like this. Let the parents know that their children are safe. So I asked this board to pass the plan and allow us to go into the high schools to implement this training to the teachers and staff.
Corporal, thank you. Are you familiar at all with any of the trainings we're currently doing? Have you been briefed at all at any time on the current trainings we're doing?
Yep.
Now, have you, the training that you're recommending, which sounds great, is this something that you've coordinated with local law enforcement, with our police department, either city or county?
There are Anne Arundel County Police that is trained in CRACE. It's a nationally recognized training. So law enforcement is trained through alert program,
Right.
as well as they also teach the civilian stuff. What they're teaching and how to do it.
Right, and we want to make sure it's all coordinated, right? Because anytime there's going to be a response, you guys are fabulous. You guys are there with us. Your team is always showing up in case we ever have.
Reach out to Anne Arundel County Police Department and Annapolis and the other local police departments in the area to do, if we need to, do a joint
Right, it would need to be,
initiative with
absolutely,
this.
and that's sort of what the point, I want to make sure
Yes.
that our local law enforcement are in line with you guys and the current trainings we're doing, and if we need to beef those up or change those, we want to make sure that we have the latest and best information. So would you do me a favor, and would you take a minute to step out with Ms. Jackson, who's our deputy superintendent, oversees our safety and security plans, and she can get some more information. Would you all be willing to do that?
Of course.
Outstanding, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cinco.
Thank you. Dr. Arletto, President Hummer, and board members, my name is Jennifer Senko. I am a lifelong resident of Anne Arundel County and proud 1990 graduate of Broadneck High School. I attended the U.S. Naval Academy and left to follow my dream of empowering others. I have been a licensed clinical social worker for over 20 years, providing counseling and mental health services in the community. I come to you today as a concerned parent. After the school shooting in Florida, I began to have discussions with my 9th grader, who also attends Broadneck High School, about what to do if the unimaginable happened. When I found myself shopping online, purchasing a bulletproof insert for my son's backpack, yes, Walmart sells those for $80 if anyone's interested, that was a wake-up call that I needed to get involved and advocate for change. The gun violence in Florida, experienced just a few weeks ago, had a ripple effect across our nation. It has caused anxiety, fear, anger, and frustration, but it has also caused us to look at how we are handling our school security. I was delighted to watch the announcement yesterday that $15 million is being allocated towards increasing school security measures. I'm impressed and grateful that our county is taking the lead in our state to reform how we keep our children safe at school and addressing school safety in a timely manner. These efforts are a great first step. I do believe that once the dust settles, we need to take a deeper look at the root causes of the rise in school violence. There are countless debates on why the recent school violence in our nation's school has occurred, but I believe we can all agree there isn't just one cause. I strongly believe that one of the core causes of the increase in school violence is due to the lack of adequate mental health services for our students. Currently, all 121 schools in Anne Arundel County have access to a school psychologist. However, most psychologists are assigned to more than one school. For instance, Rachel Hunton is the school psychologist for Broadneck Senior High. She is also serving 2 other elementary schools. That means she is the only psychologist for over 3,200 students. Social workers are also utilized in our school system for mental health services. Out of 121 schools, only 24 schools currently have school social workers on staff. As a mental health clinician, I have worked in the area hospital and have seen firsthand how children are self-medicating with drugs and alcohol to escape the depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues they are facing. They turn to these vices often due to their underaddressed or unaddressed mental health needs. By increasing access to mental health services within our school system, we can start to help these children before their issues escalate into the problems we are now dealing with as a nation. I encourage you to work with Dr. Anderson, the coordinator of Anne Arundel County School Psychologists and Mental Health Services, in order to increase our mental health staffing and look for innovative ways to meet the mental health needs of these vulnerable young population. I sincerely appreciate this forum to communicate my concerns and suggestions. I thank you for your time today and your service to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sinkin. Next is Eva Reynolds, Lisa Van Buskirk, and Kevin Vasquez.
Good morning. My name is Eva Reynolds. I have 4 children in Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and I've time and time been impressed with the dedication of the teachers, administrators, staff, and each of you. Today, I'm not here to discuss that. I'm here as a member of the newly formed Anne Arundel County Parent Coalition. Over a year ago, a frustrated parent approached me, our PTA board, with a tragic story about her daughter and that family's experience with a bully and the climate in the school. Her one story has developed into an avalanche of stories that have come forward about the climate in our county schools. Several of those stories eloquently recounted 2 weeks ago at the last board meeting. I'm here today to remind you that we are still here managing the tempestuous climate in our county schools. I was fortunately able to meet with Dr. Kubik and Mr. Elston last week regarding some of the most distressing problems for our parents. I feel we made progress and a plan for some steps forward in our Chesapeake cluster. And I'm also here to ensure that those ideas we discussed do not get lost in the shuffle of summer or position changes, but that we tackle these challenges together, because let's face it, we're all here for the same reason, our students. Our goal is to be proactive versus reactive. Our goal is to provide a safe learning environment for all students. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Good morning, Board of Education. Lisa Van Buskirk will start school later. In 2014, the Maryland Office of Legislative Audits conducted its 6-year audit of Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Among its findings were a few related to the transportation system that were actually repeats from September 2007. Since most of you were not on the board in 2014, I provided a copy of a few of those recommendations, and I'll read it for the audience. AACPS did not have formal targets and goals to guide the decisions made during the process reviewing and revising of bus routes, nor did it use automated bus routing software to promote more efficiency. Specifically, AACPS did not have written procedures specifying critical factors used to determine efficient bus routes, such as formal bus capacity guidelines and maximum student ride times. Further, there are no written procedures for determining and implementing changes to the existing bus routes. Current AACPS policies only provide general information regarding bus transportation, such as distance from school required to ride a bus. In the audit that they went on to discuss that 1,272 bus routes in 2013, 336 were below 50% of AACPS's informal bus occupancy goals. So 4 years after this audit was conducted and 2 years before the next one, has the Transportation Department set target goals for capacity, ride time, and using the software you purchased for efficient bus routes to allow for safe and healthy school hours? I'm also here to follow up on a few statements made in September 2016 when the board voted for the 15 and 13-minute delay. Ms. Summer said, "While it's not perfect, I think we need to start making incremental changes and to move forward. I would like assurances from the school system that we will continue to do everything possible that we can in looking at things, working with the schedule to tighten this, and help these elementary schools as much as we can. And we continue to find ways to help these elementary schools so this option is truly the worst case, and we continue to find ways to improve that so it's not a burden for them." Mr. Gilliland seconded that and said, "I think we need to continue to fix the elementary school dismissal time, and I hope that the efficiency we gain from the system is a step. I really want to assure the community that I'm going to continue my role here to ensure we are efficient, gain from efficiencies, and ensure we are making the elementary school system right." Ms. Korbelek said, "I'm confident that with the transportation software, gas savings, redistricting, and other resources, we can bring those 2 outlier elementary schools back. I really believe it's time to stop kicking the can down the road." A year ago, the report that Mr. Grandin had requested was to be delivered about those 2 outlying schools, Hebron Harmon and Mead Heights. In April, when I asked about the status, and then Mr. Gannon followed up, the answer from Dr. Aletta was nothing can be done. So a year later, and now with the operational software, is AACPS looking at those 2 schools to help them. When the board approved the delay, it was under the intention of helping those elementary schools and eventually following up with the high schools. So you won't ask for additional money because you don't know how much you need, and you won't allow outside assistance to figure out what your software can do. So what are you doing to help the elementary schools that release late? Can you set in motion things that will give this partially elected boards 10 months from now some serious options to consider for school hours that are health, safety, and age appropriate for all students? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Van Buskirk. Mr. Vasquez.
Hi, my name is Kevin Vasquez. I'm from Chesapeake High School. I'm a senior. I come today to address your own agenda. You have multiple parents here, multiple people that are concerned with problems happening in their county, and yet none of your agenda items actually address those issues. I find it horrific that the board's unwillingness to represent the public will is shown so openly. Thank you.
Kevin, before you leave, would you do me a favor and meet with Dr. Kubik? Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Victoria Calhoun.
My name is Lieutenant Colonel Victoria Calhoun, U.S. Army retired. I have come to this board on the last several occasions, and I want to make the public aware that yesterday I wrote the president and the vice president, and I CC'd the executive agent of this board about improper procedures that this board has conducted concerning the approval of that strategic plan. I want the public to go and look at the record. The gentleman just spoke to you about the lack of public involvement in the processes of this board. What I wrote to the president and vice president of the board was that the public is summarily being dismissed and their input is being disregarded. And I realize, having sat here in the last few meetings, that it's very difficult for you all to process and take some of this information and make it into something that's actionable. But several of the members have brought it up, and we have to do something. My point was to you that that strategic plan was the document for this board to help the superintendent get after some real goals. I am sorely disappointed in what has been done. I went to every meeting. I tried to participate, and I have been disregarded in every process. That is exactly what this gentleman just told you. I am a parent. I just came from an IEP meeting for my daughter, and my school has no resources to support her. She is now 2-3 grades behind. This is horrible. This isn't about people. This isn't about kids. This is about resources, and you all know it. You all just voted for more resources to go to the school. The superintendent is struggling with not enough resources. This community and this board must take action. My daughter is falling behind today. Today, I don't have tomorrow. She needs help. That strategic plan was your opportunity to rally the people of this county and to make everything actionable that these people come in here and lay on the table to you. You have to fix your business processes. I know some of you all are running. I personally do not have the time to run, and I thank you for your service. But we have to fix the problems. We need a coordinated effort. We have a great superintendent. We have people that are clearly willing to take the time and tell you what needs to be fixed. They don't know how to fix it. We've lost the ability to conduct civic engagement, and a democracy cannot run on that. You need help. These parents need help. I implore you. I believe that strategic plan was the way to go. There's many ways to approach that. I told you in my email to you that the parliamentarian has to tell you, you actually did not conduct the procedures correctly. I do not know what that gentleman is telling you. There's ways to attack it. But this problem is not going to go away. Thank you.
Ms. Calhoun, I did receive your email yesterday, and I will be contacting you, and maybe the two of us can get together to discuss the strategic plan carefully. We do have our board counsel here, and he can address your concerns about the point of order. Mr. Bennett, if you want to just share that publicly, please.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Arlotto, my name is Tyson Bennett. I'm board counsel, and at the request of the board president, I did review Robert's Rules of Order, which I have taught for a number of years at various places over a period of time of my service of the board. And I understand the fervor with which the most recent speaker talked with you. However, I will tell you that when the lady has mentioned the use of someone who, of having stepped up and asked you to do certain things parliamentarily and thinking that you were doing the things in the wrong way, she really didn't have the standing to do that because Robert's Rules is very clear that someone can submit requests and talk about the fact that Robert's Rules says that any member of a group, and you are the group that runs this meeting, that any member who believes that he has noticed a case where the chair is failing to act properly can, at the time that the breach occurred, at the time that the problem occurred, can call attention to it by raising what's called a point of order. Any of you can do that. You could raise a point of order and say, Madam Chair, I don't believe that that was done properly. And the effect is to require the chair to make a ruling on whether or not what was done properly or not in a parliamentary fashion. It's not a point of order is intended only for use by members of the group that are meeting. It is not intended for use by observers, outside observers, members of an audience. So while I certainly think that the president has come up with a good compromise, I think, in offering to meet with the lady who was very distressed about what occurred, and they can have that conversation. I simply, as your parliamentarian for a number of years, I simply wanted to point out to you that this is not a parliamentary issue. This is an issue involving the operation of the board and the way it operates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Is there any other public comment at this time?
Good morning, Honorable Commissioners. My name is Julia Martin, and I'd like to thank you for your continued service and commitment to our community, especially over the past 2 weeks. Your efforts and challenges have not gone unnoticed. Recent events have shown that AACPS and local law enforcement react, respond, and resolve threats well. Yesterday's media advisory announced great efforts to deter individuals from attacking our schools. Our hope is that we never have to put some of those resources to use. If we have to respond, we're already too late. If deterrence is the only thing stopping our students from committing such a heinous and cowardly act, we are already too late in meeting the needs of that individual child. We cannot ignore the preventative measures that also need to be addressed. There are still policies and procedures that are broken and not being followed. I'm here today representing many of the concerned parents that were present last meeting, where we heard your budget concerns and funding barriers that you face as a board. Since then, we too have been very busy. There have been many meetings to elaborate on concerns, gain knowledge and clarity, seek, offer, and suggest solutions. We are working hard to educate ourselves and others on the policies and regulations, not only of AACPS, but the state and federal as well. Monday, we provided testimony and a unified call to action before our county council. Last night, we attended the public budget meeting and submitted requests as well as evidence as to why this board's proposed budget needs to be fully funded. We will remain present and vocal to ensure that this board allocates funds appropriately. Last meeting, I opened by quoting your Board of Education handbook, stating that it is the commitment to do what is right for all children, even in opposition, that brings me before you. Today, I leave you with the wise words of Abraham Lincoln. You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. We appreciate your support. Is there any other public comment? Okay. All right. Item 4.01 through 4.04 are information action award of contracts. Do I have a motion to bundle items 4.01 to 4.04? All those in favor? Okay. Do I have a motion to move these items from information to action? So moved. Second. All those in favor? Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I'm recommending the Board of Education award contracts listed on today's agenda as 4.01 through 4.04.
Okay. Are there any board questions or comments on any of these items? Is there any public comment on these items? All right. All those in favor? Motion passes 9-0. Item 5.01 is administrative personnel appointments, and there are no appointments for this meeting. Item 5.02 is personnel. Sorry. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend the board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
Second. Okay. Are there any board questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? Motion passes 9-0. Item 5.03 is reappointment of the school board ethics panel members. Mr. Gilliland.
Madam President, I recommend that the board reappoint Jacqueline Ossip, Charles Jeffries, and Kia Chandler to the School Board Ethics Panel.
Are there any board questions or comments on this item? Is there any public comment? Okay, all those in favor of reappointing these members to the School Board Ethics Panel? Okay, motion passes 9-0. Item 5.04 is the Ruth Parker Eason Water Management Inspection and Maintenance Agreement. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of the Ruth Parker Eason Stormwater Management Inspection and Maintenance Agreement.
Okay. Are there any board questions or comments on this agreement? Is there any public comment? All those in favor? Motion passes 9-0. Thank you. All right. Item 5.05 is items of legislation. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action? All those in favor? All right, Ms. Ortiz.
Good morning. For the record, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Counsel. So today I have one bill for the board to consider to vote. It's House Bill 1466, Education and Video on Harms and Risks of Narcotic Drugs. So this bill would essentially require the Maryland State Department of Education to develop an educational video to provide awareness to high school students on the harmful effects and risks of experimenting with narcotic drugs. It would require each public high school in the state to show the video to each high school student annually, and we would also be required to certify that each student in each high school has seen the video annually. So the recommendation is to support this bill with amendments. As you know, we're all aware, we have an opioid epidemic in the state, so we understand the importance of educating our youth. AACPS has really been a leader on this front, and we do a lot of this education. Right now, we had legislation last year that passed that also provides for additional education, to schools and around the state. So the recommended amendments would essentially, instead of requiring each public high school to show the video, it would be to encourage each public high school, and instead of requiring each public high school to show the video to each student, we would change that, to encourage each public high school to show the video to students, right? Because it might be impossible to show it to every single student with absences and other things that occur. And then also we recommend that we strike in its entirety the language that would require each public high school to certify that the video has been shown to each student. Again, that would be kind of burdensome. And so we are in support of the intent and the spirit of the legislation, but just wanted to minimize the mandates. And so I recommend that the board support this bill with amendments.
Ms. Sasso.
I just have a comment, because it appears that more and more the educational system is being burdened with regulations that basically, in a way, has nothing to do with education. This is a health problem. If we work so close together with the Maryland Department of Health and the Anne Arundel County, why are they putting this burden, or can't we go back to have it certified? Make the health department certified. They can come into our school system, the nurses could come in, and they be the ones responsible. If a child is absent, they can go and search for him and certify him individually.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand your concern. We've had lots of legislation this year in particular, where record amount of bills and lots of mandates. You have several in the Section 3, which fall under the legislative program, so a vote is not needed on them, that are trying to require schools to do traumatic brain injury screenings and all kinds of things that, while we understand the concerns, do put a lot of responsibility on educational, on local school systems that, as you indicated, Ms. Sasso, are not necessarily under our purview. And so this bill, I think typically we would oppose something like this, but given the epidemic that we're experiencing in the state and in the county, we thought a good compromise would be the encouraging language and not the mandates that you have expressed concerns
And can
with.
we have the health department be the ones to certify it?
If that is an amendment that the board would like to propose and vote upon, certainly that can be included in testimony.
Though I think we'd rather just have the certified language stricken. That would be our recommendation. That way we can support with amendments. I think we support the basic premise behind it. But I don't know that we would have the ability to certify each individual student. Like you're saying, I don't know that a nurse would be able to have or health department would be able to have that same ability. I think we're better off if this board agrees to support with the amendment and have that piece stricken. We're glad to have the extra resources. So if a quality video is put out and we could incorporate it into the curriculum we're already using, that would be great. The mandates are difficult to work with, though.
Okay. I would go along with that.
Mr. Grannon.
Yes, thank you. Perhaps you, Ms. Ortiz, or Dr. Lotto could address some of the logistical difficulties that you think the school system would have in trying to administer this, because to me it seems like, Mr. Gilliland has used the expression before up here, I think aptly, is the juice worth the squeeze? I think that this juice is definitely worth the squeeze. We heard a presentation, I think 1 or 2 meetings ago, with a statistic that boggled my mind, if I'm recounting it correctly. Something like 25% of high school students had used marijuana within the past 30 days. If that's true, that is horrific. And to me, if a student is absent and misses, a 15-minute video, how hard is it to go and make sure that student sees the 15-minute video and does that either in between periods or at recess or something like that? To me, to say that this is like an administrative burden that's too much for us, to me kind of flies in the face of terrible statistics of high school students, breaking the law, and not to mention putting themselves in harm's way at those rates of 25% in the past 30 days. So I'd like to hear some of the logistics behind our supposed inability to make sure that every student in high school sees a 15-minute video, because presently I'm inclined to move that we strike this amendment and support the legislation as originally proposed.
Well, I think you're exactly right on, Mr. Granham. Those are the juxtaposition is exactly what we're struggling with, right? The need for more information in the schools because of sometimes the negative behaviors that students are involved with, right? And the negative decisions that they make with what we have the ability to do within a school. Our first line of defense, our first argument would be that we're doing this, right? In the curriculum, in the elementary school level, and middle school level, and the high school level, we're delivering this information. That would be my first comment to you. We feel very confident that our curriculum is well written and well delivered. If this is going to be yet another step, and as I said earlier in response to Ms. Sasso, if this is a resource that we think is going to be useful, we haven't seen the resource yet. We don't know. Our team has not seen the resource because it hasn't been developed yet. It's a thought. But if it's a quality resource, then we could incorporate it into, and it's developmentally appropriate at the grade levels, we can see where it best fits into the curriculum. That said, to have the mandate that every student will see it and that we're going to have to certify that, so it's shown in a health class, I'm making this up as an example, in the 10th grade at a certain time during the curriculum, and a student or a group of students is absent on that day. And now the school is now they're going to have to find time to, the curriculum will move on the next day, but they missed that video, and now to talk about logistics, the school's going to have to find those students, identify them, and then somehow show them the video outside of class. I don't know how they do that, right? That becomes difficult. That becomes logistically difficult. Now, the majority of kids will see the video, right? And the majority of kids maybe will come in and make up the time with that teacher. But if we have to then go and certify and then send that to the state, I'm going to have some kind of documentation. I don't know what that's going to look like, all 24 LEAs, and it's going to be incumbent upon us to say, yes, each individual student saw this video, and I can certify that it was done, and send that to the state, I think is just too much to ask.
I've got a quick follow-up to that.
Okay.
Just procedurally, I want to let you all know so it doesn't get lost. I am going to move to strike this amendment, and then we can vote on that. But I just want to say before, I hear all that. I hear what you're saying. I defer to you, and I respect your expertise in these issues. I still think the juice is worth the squeeze, and to show a 15, I don't think we have any basis to anticipate that MSDE is going to put out a resource that is anything other than appropriate. If we're not doing a video now, if we're already doing a video, then this requirement's being met. If it doesn't sound like the curriculum includes a video, and I think that this is important enough that students do go make that up, whether they do it in recess, whether they have to stay after school and watch it. It's not that we track student attendance now. To me, it does not seem that burdensome, and to the extent it is that burdensome, it's worth the burden for something as important as this. So whenever the chair feels is appropriate, I'd like to make that motion to strike this amendment.
And just to clarify, this bill is for high school students.
Mr. Butcher.
Dr. Lotto included my rebuttal to what Mr. Green was stating, so I don't have a comment anymore.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. And I know the motion hasn't been made yet, so I'm not saying this in the spirit of debate, but just some thoughts as we potentially head down this path. My concern is just local boards of education losing the authority to do something that may work well for their locality. And again, I certainly support the spirit of this. I think it is well intended and quite necessary. But what scares me more than anything on this is MSDE and Maryland Department of Health. And while I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, with no offense intended, I just worry that something that is so generic for the state may have greater emphasis on one jurisdiction over the other and may not necessarily suit our needs. So I would hope that as the amendments are considered, we are able to do something, with the great talent we have that's hidden in that room, in fact, right now, but something that is specific for our needs, that can address what's important at Annapolis High School or North County High School or Meade High School, as opposed to a high school in Baltimore City or a high school in Somerset County. So I just look at it from that approach.
Ms. Sasso.
Yes, Mr. Grannon, the point remains, and I agree that every child should see it, but I also have to restate something that is a health issue. If they would put it on the health department, that's fine. Let them go looking for the child, the nurses. But I think we would probably have to have one more person assigned to the responsibility of all of those that are absent that day. Go and find them. Go schedule them. What happens if Dr. Arlotta or the school system certifies on February the 1st that everybody in the school took the class, but it happened that on January 31st a new child came in and that child is not certified? I think we are reaching a level of complicated paperwork for the school system over and over again. Now we have security, security, and now we have health. When do we teach our kids really the basics in education? When do we as a board responsible just for education of the children? This is a health issue. I'm not saying that it's not important. We will show the video, whatever they prepare. But for us to be responsible, put it on the health hands. They are the ones responsible for the health of our children. It's just like security. We agreed, or we were working with Mr. Shu, and everybody else. The policeman will come with the plans, the policeman will implement them. But, we can't be hiring the guards too and doing everything. We don't get the financial appropriation for it. That's my point of view.
Ms. Korbelak.
I think it's fine for the legislature to share an objective that we want to make sure that our students are educated about the harms and risks of narcotic drugs. That's one thing, but to dictate the specific video for our curriculum is really out of their purview.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to personally attest to the challenges that it can take to track down students to make up legislated requirements. As a former department chair, it was my responsibility when we had HSAs, when students weren't able to pass the HSAs, to administer bridge projects, which was a graduation requirement. It became a full-time job that took months to track down each individual student in order to make sure they completed their bridge project. In some cases, they didn't, and this is a graduation requirement. I can only imagine the time that would be that would have to be assigned to teachers, creating an additional workload in order to complete this requirement. For this reason and for the others that we've heard here regarding the independence of individual LEAs and their school boards, I am going to vote no.
And I will just say, as a parent of 3 current high schoolers that are in there, they are receiving excellent education in their health classrooms about narcotic awareness and the effects and risk. And I see that, and I hear the things they're doing. Many of those lessons are far more effective than watching a video, because they're doing some more hands-on project-based learning for those. And so I feel that my students who are there on the daily basis are certainly getting this education as it is. If this could be an added resource that we could use that would supplement the curriculum, I'd be all for it. But I do think that requiring it when we have already created our own curriculum that has in there is overreach. But well, it's Mr. Grannon, do you wish to make an amendment?
I'm just going to state that, again, the presentation that we heard a couple of weeks ago was compelling, and to me, I don't know, maybe it's a synapse or something is not working in my brain, but I can't hold those two things in my head. Either what the presentation or the presenter was saying is true and accurate, that 25% of high school students have used marijuana in the prior 30 days from that survey, or we're doing an effective job at educating our children about the health aspects and frankly the illegality, not just the health aspects, but the illegality of using drugs. So one of those two things is incorrect. So yeah, I'm going to move that we support the legislation as proposed without these amendments.
Is there a second? Okay, motion fails. All right. Do I have a motion to support this legislation with amendments?
So moved.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, you're opposed.
Opposed to this legislation.
So the legislation altogether?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so the motion passes 7-2. Ms. Ortiz, any others?
So that's it for items of legislation. Now we have a couple of policies up on third reading. The first policy
Hold on a second.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Wait a minute. I haven't gotten there yet. I'm sorry. I was still on legislation.
Are there any other questions or concerns
Yes.
about any other legislation?
Are there any other questions about any of the other legislation in our packets this morning from the board? Questions or comments? Is there any public comment? All right. Now we will move on to item 5.06, which is an information to action item, lactation accommodations policy GE. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Vote. Okay. This is now an action item. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of policy GE, subject to final correction for style and format.
So moved. Second.
Okay. This is the third reading of this policy. Are there any board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? All right. All those in favor of lactation accommodations policy GE? Okay, motion passes 9-0. Hold on a second. Can we take a moment? I need to just consult with counsel about a quick question.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett, you come here a second. I need to ask you a question. Clear that up before we moved on. Mr. Reinhardt.
Madam President, I move to reconsider item 5.05, items of legislation.
Is there a second? All those in favor of reconsidering item 5.05, items of legislation? Okay, opposed? Okay, 8-1. Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you for, in efforts of being clear about the intention of this board, I would like, I would like to move that we vote against the entire bill rather than with amendments. I think that introduces confusion for those of us who voted for, yes, HB 1466, Education, Video on Harms and Risk of Narcotic Drugs. I believe it introduces confusion for those of us who voted against supporting with amendments, when our intention, and I believe it's with other members on the board as well, to completely vote against support, period. Can you help me phrase that better?
So you would like to, the option for the board is you would like to oppose this piece of legislation?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Sasso.
Mr. Reinhardt, can you explain why you are opposing the whole bill?
Yes, I'm opposing the entire bill for number one, the primary reason being I do not believe that it is it should be the state's place to legislate the responsibilities of individual LEAs and their boards and the curriculum writers in there. And then second, because of the undue burden by this bill that it will place on teachers and staff within buildings as well as administrative here at REVA, and will create additional workload and an additional financial burden.
Mr. Grannon.
So just my point of information. So when you're, Mr. Reinhardt, when you're saying undue burden, you're saying that above or frankly against the superintendent's recommendation that this is something that's appropriate for the schools, you're saying that we should not do that. I want to make that clear. The superintendent recommended that this board support this legislation with those amendments, and now you are suggesting that the board not support the legislation at all. I just want to make that clear. Is that your position?
So, Mr. Grannon, it is my position that the amendments do not additionally account for, in clear enough terms, that the state does not have a place, dictating what should happen. I do realize that in the amendment, we're changing the word to encourage, and we are, that the language that it needs to be certified is stricken. However, that only leaves us agreeing with the general idea that our kids should watch a video about narcotics. When in fact our curriculum writers and our instructional staff are doing an excellent job already doing this instruction in health programs as well as other programs available in the high schools. So for that reason, I oppose this because we're already doing great work in our schools, and additionally because the state does not have the place to tell local LEAs and their boards what to put in curriculum.
Mr. Butcher.
Well, now I'm a little confused. Because if Mr. Grannon had mentioned earlier, referenced earlier a meeting that I obviously was not part of, that stated that 25% of the student population within the last 30 days had engaged in whether it was marijuana or some type of narcotic, I don't see what the issue with having an additional resource, if it's a video and we have access to it, and Dr. Arletto had stated that without seeing it, if it could help, we could use it. I thought the issue that we were debating before was focusing only on the mandate on whether we needed to have our teachers certify if the student had actually seen it. So why would we be opposed to taking assistance from the state if they have a video that's better than a video that's being used in the curriculum? And how could you oppose something that we haven't even seen yet?
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. And, you know, again, I apologize for some of the confusion that's ensued as well. I do believe that the spirit of this bill is well intended, and I think it does address a severe need that we have, as Mr. Grannon said, you know, 25%. I guess that was last meeting or last month when we had that presentation, 25% have used marijuana within the last 30 days. So I wholeheartedly agree with the intent. What I worry about is, one, the mandate, the additional mandate, I should say. Second, something that is generic in the sense that it does not necessarily address Anne Arundel County's needs. And I'll even go further to say, without intending at this point to put any undue burden on the superintendent or the staff, I think we ought to do this ourselves and present it through the curriculum, however the curriculum experts here believe it should be presented. But I just don't want a generic video that, as this continues for the next 5 years through 2023, that becomes stale in a year, and yet we're still handcuffed to having to use it, when we would have the ability potentially to adjust and immediately implement what the curriculum experts here would deem most appropriate. So that's my sense, that, again, while supporting the intent, I think this bill puts an undue burden and restriction on us, should we have the need before 2023 to make an adjustment to do something that specifically suits our needs more appropriately or better.
Ms. Sasso.
We also had several meetings ago, our Anne Arundel County Department of Health bring us a video, bring us a presentation, and basically work with us for what our county needed. So this would be like superimposing then something else. I think the county is basically working with us. So I would agree that, no more burden on the school system.
All right. So the motion before us, I'm going to try to get this right, is to oppose this legislation, which, if we which would override the previous vote to support with amendments if it passed. So, and I did have a second. Did I have a second? I had a okay.
So, point of, are you sure that, Madam Chair, that this vote is going to override a vote that's already been taken?
If we vote to oppose this bill, Mr. Bennett.
I just want to make sure the board does this right. A vote was taken, and you have a result from that vote. Now there's been a motion to reconsider that vote. That needs to be seconded, and there needs to be a majority that votes in favor of reconsidering. If a majority doesn't vote in favor of reconsidering, you just move on. Okay, I understand. Now it's back in front of you as it was before. The motion is back in front of the board as it was before, and the board can continue to discuss the issue, or you can take a vote, or both. But the vote is as though there had been no previous vote.
So it's as if we didn't take the vote before, so we could have an amendment, we could have a motion to oppose this bill, and that would just move forward, or a motion to support with amendments.
Well, the cleaner way to do it is to say, previously we had a motion that said X. We are now reconsidering that motion. And then you can vote on X. Now, if X passes again, then you move on. If X fails, then there is an opportunity for additional motions to be made.
So we would make the motion to vote again to support with this legislation with amendments.
Well, right. You want the same motion to be reconsidered.
Okay.
The same motion that you had before to be reconsidered, and then based on what the results of that are, you either adopt it again and move forward to the next item on your agenda, or if it's rejected, the opportunity is available there for another motion to be made, or no motion. Okay. If board members decide they don't want to make another motion, they want to move on to the next item on the agenda, that can be done too.
Okay. Mr. Grant.
Yeah, I motion to table the board's consideration of this legislation until we can hear from the same drug education health expert that presented to us a couple of weeks ago, and she can inform us of whether she thinks the current resources are sufficient, whether there is a video that's part of the current resources, and what her view is on whether this legislation would be helpful or not, either with or without amendments. And so we can do this and make this decision with the most information and the best information available to us, and not do it now based on some ideological thoughts about whether the legislature should be voting on these issues or not.
Is there a second to table this item until we hear from the health educator who became before?
I would second it, and I also have a point of clarification. If you look at the actual language, what we did not add in terms of an amendment was that the Maryland State Department of Education, in collaboration with certain entities, including the Maryland Department of Health and the Governor's Office of Crime and Control. So that does not mean that's preventing Anne Arundel County or any other county or any other entity from participating in the development of the video.
If I may, so the legislation is clear on who they will collaborate with, and county health departments are not listed.
Departments are not listed as collaborating with this video.
Right.
It's just
It's
the
these
Maryland State
entities,
Department.
yes.
So it's not North School Systems.
North School Systems, correct.
Has the video been developed?
No, this legislation would require the development of this video. And just for informational purposes, so, it's session and things are moving very quickly, and so we can, if you vote to table this, just know that whenever you have someone from the health department come back and provide additional information to the board, this bill may have already been heard and voted on in the General Assembly, so we may miss the opportunity to actually weigh in on it. That's just something to consider.
Okay, well, the motion is on the table right now to table this item until we hear from the support.
I can make my own motion more specific, and I move that we table it into our next meeting, and that we direct the superintendent to make that person available at the next meeting. So same motion, just faster.
Well, let me, just so I can clarify, I can't, I have no authority over the health department personnel.
Request.
So I can't require anybody to attend a meeting.
Request.
Can you take a vote?
So do I have a second?
Yeah, he seconded.
Okay. So all those in favor of tabling this legislation until the Health Department personnel can come before us?
At the next meeting, right.
Okay. All those opposed? Okay, motion fails 7-2. Okay, now we will bring up the previous motion to, the original motion to support this legislation with amendments. So all those in favor of supporting this legislation with amendments? Okay, all those opposed? Okay, that was, so motion fails 5-4. 4-5. Fails 5-4-5.
There were
Fails
four
4-5.
votes in the affirmative, 5 in the negative,
Right.
so it fails.
Okay, Mr. Reinhardt.
Madam President, first let's point out the wonderful use of our parliamentarian for clearing up that confusion. Excellent job.
You are earning your money today. Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Well, when I started doing this in 1983, it was harder than it is now.
All right. Based on the results of the previous vote, I move to oppose HB 1466.
That was the vote that was just taken.
No.
Yes,
so
the
I
last
am
vote
moving
was
to-
the original vote.
I am moving to oppose the legislation as written, HB 1466.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of opposing HB 1466 as written? All those, this is.
Count again, count again.
Oppose it as written. All those. Opposed to opposing the legislation. Okay, so passes. The opposition passes.
Yes, so I will submit a letter of opposition stating the concerns that were presented here. As I stated earlier, this would typically be something the board opposes anyway per our legislative program for all of the reasons stated before, and certainly in the legislation, as I have done in the past, talk about all the things that we are doing in Anne Arundel County to educate our students on the harmful effects of narcotics and other drugs.
I request that the
Wait.
vote. The vote.
Wait, no, you haven't been recognized, Mr. Granion. Ms. Sasso.
Yes. Can you also present the fact, that some of us on the board thought that this was, well, if it could go to the health department of the county?
So that would be a proposed amendment to the bill, and so that would be something the board can have a motion on having such an amendment. However, typically when you oppose, you don't propose amendments.
Yeah, well, I don't mean an amendment, but it was just an idea.
I can certainly share that information with the sponsor of the bill.
Mr. Granion.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like the votes of each member to be reflected in whatever document you're drafting to the legislature.
So to indicate on a
Yeah.
vote from 8 to 1 to oppose. Sure. I mean,
Okay,
if the board wishes that I include that in the
If we wish to
testimony.
do that, that would be something that is not normally put into
No,
our
it's not typically.
platform. So if we would like the names of the people that voted to be in our statement to the board, we would need to, someone would need to make a motion for that, and we would need to vote on it.
Well, he made a motion.
So he's made a motion. So do we have a second to add the names of the people for and against into our statement of opposition? Okay, there's no second, so motion fails.
Well, I don't think you phrased that quite right. We can just simply provide the minutes. Let's provide the minutes of this meeting along with this position. You're saying that the board is going to put a written position into the legislature opposing a piece of legislation, but you all are not willing to put your names behind your vote? I don't understand that at all. Let's just provide the minutes.
The board, once it's a vote, it's now the board position. It's not individual positions. It's the position of the board. Ms. Sasso.
Yeah, that was going to be my statement. We sit here as a unity of a board.
I just want to add that this one was generally, our board platform, it has
Yes.
always been that we would oppose anything that mandates curriculum
Yes.
items for us in order to preserve the independence of each board to make decisions regarding curriculum based on the values and needs, and we have done that historically for every bill. This one, because of the narcotics issue, and because we do consider this such an issue, this would have been an exception to support with amendments for this one. But in general, we are consistent across the board that we oppose items that would mandate curriculum, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Typically, we wouldn't, this would fall under the Section 3 part of the packet where it falls under a legislative platform. There would be no vote by the board because it provides curriculum mandates. However, given the subject matter, we thought, a compromise could be a support with amendments.
All right, are there any other board questions or comments? Any public comment? All right, we will now move on to item 5.07, information action item, policy IJ, test administration and data reporting. This is a third reading. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of policy IJ, subject to final correction for style and format.
Second.
Oh, are there any board questions? Oh, second, I'm sorry. We got it. So, are there any board questions or comments on this policy? Is there any public comment? Public comment, come on.
Good morning. Carol Chobani, the school liaison for the Navy here in Annapolis. This is probably just more of a question than a comment. Within ESSA, the Consolidated State Plan requires some additional student subgroups to have information or have testing data collected about them. And within that, they do specify students with a parent in the military. And I think it even gets in more detail that the parent has to be active duty. So I'm just wondering, is this the place where Anne Arundel County has decided how they'll collect that military student identifier information? That's my term, not anybody else's term.
I don't believe this policy is going to dictate how we're going to collect that data. We will certainly, with ESSA, collect the data as required, but this policy doesn't dictate how we'll collect that specific data. Is that an appropriate answer, Mr. Dykstra?
Yeah, Dr. Love, Jason Dykstra, Executive Director of Instructional Data. That's correct. We're actually already collecting that information and capturing it in our official student information system.
Okay.
And this policy is not in reference to that data. It's really more cleaning up some language where the previous policy mentioned very specific vendors that we use. Those vendors have changed over time.
Okay.
And so we've taken some of the names of the vendors out of the policy since we're now working with 6+ different vendors. But the student group information is already being collected as required by ESSA.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? All right. All those in favor of policy IJ, test administration and data reporting? Okay. Motion passes 9-0. And the next board meeting will be Wednesday, March 21st at
6:02.
Oh, I'm sorry. I knew we had changed 6.01 and I missed 6.02. Item 6.02 is a review item for contracts. Are there any board questions or comments regarding these items? Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. I had a question regarding graduation ceremony venue. That's award number 3. So my question is on recommendation 3 on this particular item. There are no other facilities large enough to accommodate high school graduations that are also conveniently located for AACPS students and their families. What venues were considered when determining graduation venues?
For the record, Alex Chakno, Chief Operating Officer. We've had a long history of using the Equestrian Center in Upper Marlboro that's run under the auspices of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. For graduations here in Anne Arundel County, there is not a venue sufficiently sized to have indoor graduations at present. We have utilized Towson University and UMBC in the past, and some schools, in fact, do that. The cost for those facilities is higher than that at Upper Marlboro, at the Upper Marlboro Equestrian Center facility, and certainly the facility in Towson is a longer distance. So it's a recommendation based on a cost and convenience factor that until a suitably sized venue is built and constructed here within the county, that we use the lowest cost, appropriately sized venue that's geographically proximal here to us, which is the one in Upper Marlboro, Maryland.
So in reviewing the upcoming graduations, is Severna Park's graduation at UMBC, is that subsidized by the local families in Severna Park through boosters, or do we also pay for that?
That is subsidized through the families. Most schools have a history of collecting a senior class or graduation fee that's used to cover a multitude of items. One of that could be the differential in cost for a hosting venue.
And to your knowledge, is that graduation going to take place at the Retriever Activity Center or the new event center on campus?
It is my understanding that it will take place in the older existing facility, not the newly opened facility that just came online at the tail end of February.
And was this, so seeing this was February 9th, was there an opportunity to consider pricing at the new event center?
So we reached out to them. They had not yet contemplated utilizing that for graduations at that time, nor had they had a fee schedule established that they were willing to convey to us regarding the newly constructed and occupied facility.
Okay.
So their quotes, their references all had to do with the pre-existing facility.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions and comments? All right. Thank you, Mr. Sheknovich. All right. The next meeting of the board will be Wednesday, March 21st at 7 p.m. The next policy meeting will be Wednesday, March 14th at 1 p.m. The next budget committee meeting will be Wednesday, March 21st at 5 p.m. Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. I hope this one is easy. I move that the board enter into closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals, and to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, meeting is adjourned.